Hi.
Hi.
You have a lot of drinks in front of you today.
I do. I really do.
And we'll tell everybody why here in a second.
Okay.
But that's nice.
I know.
I'm on my second beer. What? It's a good week already. All right, everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Case Files with Kat
And Ashley.
And Oleksandr.
Woo!
I told Sarah she was being replaced and she wasn't happy with me.
Sarah, you're not being replaced, girlfriend. So you hear her? She's talking shit.
I'm just kidding. I love you, Sarah. She said I was hilarious. Okay, so
Okay.
she's back on my good list.
You are hilarious.
but go on.
Hilarious. Okay, so welcome, Oleksandr.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you
Thank you for
excited?
inviting me.
Are you excited to be here? Or are you nervous?
Yes, definitely nervous, and I'm obsessed with X-Files and everything with crime.
So this is your
Love it.
This is awesome. So you're a longtime listener, first time guest.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you.
I hope we don't disappoint you.
Definitely.
We have that effect on people.
I think the only guest that's ever returned has been Sarah.
I know. Womp womp. Oh no! I
Yeah.
gotta do my thing. It's too late. Wrong one. See, I'm disappointing myself.
Oh God.
God, I'm a
That was
disappointment to
perfect.
myself. Okay, so Oleksandr, tonight's story comes from you. This is your request. So since you're here, I'm gonna make you help me with pronunciation.
Definitely.
You are being voluntold, my friend.
Also, we have the beer.
Oh yeah, hold on. I
because
haven't
he
gotten
brought
it
us
yet. Oh, yeah,
beer.
we have the beer because he brought us beer.
Yeah, provided all
I have
supplies.
cider.
But drink more because I'm gonna butcher your mother tongue, and I'm gonna. That's gonna be so embarrassing. Not quite like Isle of
Sorry, you were talking so
Isle
much.
of Wit.
Lovely sound.
Hey,
Hey,
I didn't know. All right, we didn't have a British person here to correct me. Okay, Glenn just did it after the damn episode came out.
English. Oh, we'll never die.
This is a really good cider.
Okay, so what are you drinking? Speaking of.
Cider Fresca, which is a pineapple cider. It's from City Orchard, which is in Houston, and it's one of my favorite places to get ciders from. They are so good. Ooh. Yes, I've never had this one, but City Orchard is so good. Their ciders are really, really good. Cheers. Thank you.
So cheers. And I'm drinking Belching Beaver's Deftones Phantom Bride. It is an IPA. I haven't had this in years. I think it was like, I definitely had this.
I love
like
the can art.
first season. I think I'm going back. It's out of Oceanside, California. Whoop, 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 whoop. What are you drinking?
Access APA.
Oh, the Access IPA.
Yeah.
From
Real El Brewing.
Oh, that's a
Real-
good brewery.
Yep, it is. Really Brewing.
This other one I have in front. I'm drinking two things at once, guys.
Her little face is going to get all pink.
My face is already turning red. In case you guys haven't heard, my face turns so red when I drink. The other one is, Muffin Delicious Russian Imperial Stout with blueberries from Saloon Door, our local brewery. And it's always delish.
Delish. And it's
so
a
good.
Russian Imperial Stout
Yeah, it's,
to go with tonight's story.
sure.
Sure.
Totally planned.
It was. I
Yes.
planned
Yeah,
it. I
oh,
picked
okay.
it.
Well,
it
it's
was
good.
planned. I got to pick something, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drink.
It's like their their normal tasty AF sort of with
Yeah.
blueberries. It's really good.
Tasty AF. All right. So I'm just going to get started because this is a big story. It's huge. It's not my longest, but it's big. Okay. So let me just start. All right. So this takes place in it takes place in Ukraine,
Definitely, yes.
but Ukraine under Stalin's Russia, which is like how it was when it starts in that time. He's born. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about one of the worst serial killers ever. I'm going to say his name wrong now that I have to say it on online here. Andrei Chikatilo. Oh, I did it.
Fancy.
Yeah. Okay. So to put this into some perspective, when I say he's one of the worst ever, to put this into some perspective, in the United States, the serial killer with the highest number of confirmed victims is generally believed to be Samuel Little. who I covered before, who confessed to 90 murders, but police only confirmed 50.
Oh,
50.
damn.
Here, the known victims of Chikatilo were 11 boys and 42 young girls and women, most of them drifters whose absence was never reported. How he managed to persuade them to follow him into the woods or into shacks is beyond me, honestly. But between 1978 and 1990, this guy went on to kill at least 53 people and doing some pretty gruesome stuff to their bodies. And you know what's crazy? The dude managed to dodge the cops like it was no big deal, slipping through their fingers time and time again. That's the messed up part. Just like, oh, you had him. You don't have him. So let's just dive into it.
Yeah.
Bloop, bloop, bloop. Okay, so we're going to start with his early life. So Chikatilo is born, so picture this, October 16th, 1936. It's a long time ago. In the Ukrainian village of Yabluchny. No, I said it better the first time. Yabluchny. No.
Almost.
Okay, nope, I'm going to stop. Ukraine's just starting to recover from a brutal famine. Say it.
Holodomor.
There you go. Caused by Stalin's agricultural policies that killed millions. Like some would say like 20 million people. Is that about right?
Approximately minimum 8 million.
8 million?
Minimum.
Oh, wow. A minimum of 8 million.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere else it was like 50 million and I was like, oof, horrible time. So Ukraine was growing the food and then having to send it to Mother Russia for it to be divvied up. And if you were a farmer, you might have gotten a little bit of space in your own farm to grow your own food, but not very many people got that. Like, and it wasn't enough to sustain a family for sure. Chikatilo's parents were hard at work on their little farm, barely scraping by. They had no wages, just a bit of land to grow their food behind their little tiny hut. And this is the scene that Andrei Chikatilo was born into, compounding with the harsh and physical environment of the famine. Like, kids got used to seeing dead people on the street. There was cannibalism. There was just, carts of bodies being taken down. Like, so kids are watching this all the time. And then with adding on top of that, all of the things that he experienced growing up. So according to biography, he was believed to have had hydrocephalus, or more commonly known as water on the brain. So when he was born, so he already had some brain damage issues. And I'll talk more about it later, but it's believed that this resulted in his being impotent, although he could still ejaculate. We're going to talk a lot about this man's ejaculations.
Great.
So excited.
Yeah.
That's what I show up for.
More than I wanted to. So I'm going to stop right here and just say trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. This has a lot of sexual assault, child abuse, murder, obviously, cannibalism, just mutilation of bodies. And it's just, it's bad. It's bad all around. So please listen with caution. Okay. Gotta talk about his ejaculating again. All right. So just sorry. All right. So food was scarce, like really, really scarce. Andrei once said that he didn't even taste bread until he was 12. That's just a long time.
I'm going to say it's making it really hard to feel bad for him. I know that he's about to commit all kinds of crazy shit, but knowing that that's what he grew up in, it's kind of hard to not.
You can see, but like when I was talking earlier to the wizard, I was like, man, all the things that this kid experienced growing up, he became. All of the horrors that he experienced and saw, he became.
Yeah.
And so I'll get into that
it's definitely
a little bit
that
more.
Nurture versus nature thing.
100%. So he and his family were so desperate for food, they sometimes resorted to eating grass and leaves. Chikatilo's childhood was rough, to say the least. His mom used to tell him that his older brother was actually taken and killed and eaten by his neighbors. that has not been able to be confirmed, however. But imagine just being told by your mom, don't go play outside. The neighbors are going to take you and eat you. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it was, as I said before, it was a hard time, and many people, they were eaten by their relatives because there were no any supply.
Right.
So it took everything.
There's pictures, there's video. You can see so much, and I won't share it. But if you want to see it, it's not hard to find. But you can just see people like kind of chomping on other people. It's really anyway. Then World War II comes along. Yay! And things get even worse. Chikatilo's dad gets drafted into the army, leaving him and his mom alone, and they endure bombings, fires, shootings during the Nazi occupation of Ukraine. There was one time where their hut got burned down and they had to watch it go down in flames, which is just horrible. His mom gave birth to a baby girl named Tatiana in 1943, but here's the twist. His dad was away fighting in the war. And
Surprise.
so
Question: when the dad was away fighting, or did they still have their farm? Like, were they still growing stuff?
well,
or were
eventually
they just...
their hut got burned down.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but I didn't
no.
know if that... Okay.
So rumor was that Chikatilo's mom was raped by a German soldier while he was in the room, and she became pregnant with Tatiana due to that. And so that is just a horrible thing to experience
Absolutely.
in and of itself. So come 1944, Chikatilo starts school, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows, Avi. He's shy, he's frail, he's hungry all the time because of the post-war famine. A poor guy even faints a few times from hunger in class. And bullies, yep, he had them. They made his life miserable, taunting him for being so small and timid. At home, it wasn't any better. His mom was pretty harsh on him and his sister. I mean, she was the product of rape. I can't. That's no excuse, but damn, you know. And while his dad, who was away at war, was remembered as the kinder parent, obviously. So, but despite all the hardship, Chikatilo found solace in his books, and he became a bit of a bookworm, studying hard to make up for his poor eyesight. He couldn't afford glasses. He couldn't read the chalkboard. So it was just like a struggle for him at school, but he was actually very smart, and teachers liked him for that. He was well behaved and very smart.
I'm sorry. Were all the people in Ukraine not suffering? Because like you said, he had bullies that were making fun of him for being so skinny. Was
I think
it not like a...
I think there were
they
probably
not
some
all
poorer than others, you know.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was I hate to say this, like the Hunger Games. You know what I mean? Like were there so everyone in Ukraine wasn't suffering. It was just like a sect of people.
Well, if you were probably a policeman,
I don't know how to ask
or
the question I'm asking.
if you were like a policeman guarding the grain, I'm sure you were fed.
Yeah, I was just wondering because
Yeah.
you mentioned the kids. I just assumed that they were all kind of in the same boat. So that's why I was curious about the bullying.
Not everyone was a farmer.
Definitely. And if you are or some relatives of your family with, as we say, like with this regime,
Oh, yeah.
definitely protect.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. I was just curious. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But today you are in the regime, tomorrow you are in the grave.
Yeah.
This was about like Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so by his teens, Chikatilo was both a model student and an ardent communist. Great combo. He was appointed editor of his school newspaper by age 14. And actually, I don't know when I put this in there. So he was a bedwetter. And I think that it added to some of his like shame and his,
I'm
his
sure.
later things. But his mom was not very forgiving of the bedwetting. And every time he did it, she would take him out, strip him down, and hit him with a wooden spoon on his penis.
I didn't know.
Because did that work? I mean, go ahead and shame him to, not peeing the bed. It's like we treat animals better. So you can see where all these, he's getting all the marks, all the check marks to become a serial killer.
I hate that he became what he became. But God damn. Like that I cannot even imagine growing up in that kind of environment where like you're starving, people are just dying everywhere. People are eating other people. You're getting bullied by people at school and then your home life. Like I just can't. Your parent that you're closest to is called. Like I can't imagine.
And he said in an interview towards the end of his life that, they're like, is kindness important to you? And he kind of stops for a second and he said, nobody was kind. We all just tried to survive. Yeah, nobody was kind. Yeah. And it's like, you can't when you're in it for survival. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so he became appointed as editor of a school newspaper at age 14 and chairman of the Pupils Communist Party Committee 2 years later. He was an avid reader of communist literature, and he was also delegated the task of organizing street marches. So although Chikatilo claimed learning did not come easy to him due to headaches and a poor memory, he was the only student from his collective farm to complete the final year of study, graduating with excellent grades in 1954. Go, Chikatilo. Can't cheer him on. So, at the onset of puberty, shit starts to go down. All right. This is when he discovered that he had chronic impotence, worsening his social awkwardness and self-hatred. He was shy in the company of women, and I mean shy. If a girl came and sat next to him in class, he would get up and change seats because he was like, she might talk to me. Like he just could not. He had no game. He had no self-esteem, and it was like, that was it.
I hate how bad you're making me feel for this guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. He gets really bad.
I know, but like, damn, all this stuff you're saying, it's like hard. Like,
it's confusing.
How could you not hate everybody? You know what I mean? Like,
so it doesn't get easier for him. So
yeah,
his
I know,
first crush at age 17 had been on a girl named Lilia Barasheva.
That's a pretty name.
With whom he had become acquainted through the school newspaper, yet he was chronically nervous in her company and never asked her out on a date. The same year, Chikatilo jumped upon an 11-year-old friend of his younger sister and wrestled her to the ground, ejaculating as the girl struggled in his grasp. So he's like, oh, you're struggling? Pew! I'm like, that's it. So right in his pants. All right. So after finishing school, Chikatilo had his sights set on Moscow State University. He thought he aced the entrance exam, but turns out his grades weren't up to snuff. He blamed it on his dad's shady past. So his dad was in the military, fought in the war, but I guess the idea was either you win or you die. Those are the two options. He was captured and became a POW, and he was considered a coward for that.
You said the father, right?
The father. And so that was a shame on the family for him to have survived the war by being in a prisoner of war camp, which is
bizarre to me.
That is not how we feel about POWs now. And that breaks your heart. So he thought it was going to be because he thought he didn't make it into Moscow State University because of his dad, but really it was just that he didn't match up to everyone else's grades. I mean, it was pretty stiff competition. So instead of trying his luck elsewhere, he headed to Kursk.
Yes.
Ooh, okay. All right. I've been working. All right. Where he did some labor work for a few months. And then in 1955, he decided to give vocational school a shot, aiming to become a communications technician. And around that time, he got serious with a girl from the area, a couple of years younger than him. They tried to get funky a couple of times, get down with it, but each time he could not get it up. And after about 18 months, she called it quits. She's very patient. Right?
What a bee.
What a bee. Well, I mean,
censoring the show now.
Gotta get moms. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how.
I feel like if you love someone,
Yeah, but but 18.
I know. I'm just saying.
Unless he was really good at cunnilingus, or if he was really good at just other things. But I don't know that he was all like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he was a giver. like if you can't.
I'm just saying there's other things that can go on, right?
He could have asked, like, can you squirm? Maybe. But then that could have been like a weird. I like it if you struggle. Can you just
wiggle around?
Can you struggle against me? I don't know. That would have been really weird.
I'm just saying
People
there's other
have rape
things
fantasies.
that could have happened, right? Like, I don't know.
You could.
Anywho, she left. Sorry. Go on.
They didn't. I don't think they had strap-ons.
I didn't mean strap-ons. Damn. If you're a chamber member, tune out now. Thank you.
That would have been an option. Whoa, you just got bad. I know we're gonna get fired. Okay, so after finishing his vocational training, Chikatilo packed up and headed to Nizhny Tagil. No. Say it.
Nizhny Tagil.
There you go. A city in the. I'm just gonna say Urals. Urals? Yep. To join a big construction project. While he was there, did I say it right? No. While he was there, he didn't just sit around. Nope. He also took some correspondence courses in engineering through Moscow Electrotechnical Institute of Communication. And he spent about 2 years working there until the Soviet Army came calling in 1957. So,
truthfully, this isn't that long ago. You made it seem like it was super, super long ago, but I feel like that wasn't. My grandmother was born in 1943.
Oh, sure.
I just don't feel like it was that long ago.
It wasn't.
It was crazy to think that it's not. You know what I mean? Like, this kind of devastation was happening not that long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, like, when.
Yeah. I mean, but, it's just. I don't know. You would think, like, it was something that would have happened long time ago.
Yeah, but no.
The amount of devastation you're describing is what I'm saying. Is It just, I don't know. It blows my mind that it was only like 17 years ago. 17. That's what I'm sorry. I thought that's what I said. 17.
No,
I'm done talking. Go on.
7 0.
I'm just going to back
For
up.
the next 3 years, Chikatilo did his time in the army, starting off with border guard duty in Central Asia before moving on to the KGB communications gig in East Berlin. He kept his nose clean at work, and just before his military stint ended in 1960, he even joined the Communist Party. He was a big-time communist. After his military stint, Chikatilo went back home to his village and crashed with his folks for a little bit. But then he met a young divorced woman and they hit it off. Things got serious pretty fast, but when they tried to get intimate, Chikatilo, again, could not perform. This happened a few times, and eventually the woman turned to her friends for advice on how to help him out with his little problem. As a result, most of his peers discovered his impotence because those ladies could not keep their mouths shut. So in a 1993 interview regarding this incident, Chikatilo stated, quote, "Girls were going behind my back whispering that I was impotent. I was so ashamed. I tried to hang myself. My mother and some young neighbors pulled me out of the noose. Well, I thought no one would want such a shamed man, so I had to run away from there, away from my homeland." Yep. So after a few months of searching, Chikatilo landed a gig as a communications engineer in a town up north from Rostov-on-Don. Rostov-on-Don. No.
Rostov-na-Donu.
Nope. Okay. That's not how it's spelled. Okay. So in 1961, he made the move to the Russian SFSR, snagging a cozy little apartment near his workplace. Around the same time, his younger sister, Tatiana, finished up school and joined him in his new place. Their folks would follow suit and move to Rostov soon after. I'm just going to say Rostov.
Okay.
All right. Tatiana bunked with her brother for about 6 months until she tied the knot with a local guy and moved in with his family. She said she didn't really notice anything off about her brother's lifestyle, except for his chronic shyness around women. She made it her mission to help him out, figuring he needed a nudge in the right direction to settle down and start a family. In 1963, Chikatilo married a woman named Feodosia Odnicheva, to whom, I'm just butchering that, to whom he had been introduced by his younger sister. And according to Chikatilo, although he was attracted to Feodosia, his marriage was effectively an arranged one, which occurred barely 2 weeks after they met, and in which the decisive roles were played by his sister and her husband. Chikatilo later claimed that his marital sex life was minimal and that after his wife understood he was unable to maintain an erection, they agreed she would conceive by him ejaculating in his hand and pushing the semen into her vagina with his fingers. And that actually worked, y'all. That's like immaculate conception shit. So they never actually had sex, but she got pregnant twice. In 1965, Feodosia gave birth to a daughter, Ludmila. 4 years later, in 1969, a son named Yuri was born. In 1964, he decided to give university a shot, but not the traditional way. He opted for correspondence courses at Rostov University, diving into Russian literature and philosophy, something. He stuck with it, and by 1970, he had his degree in hand. All right. So right before getting that piece of paper, he landed a job overseeing sports stuff in the region. Just sports.
Just stuff.
Local sports stuff. But that only lasted a year before he switched gears and became a teacher, dishing out lessons on Russian literature. At vocational school number 32 in Novoshatinsk. Nope. Nope.
Maybe no Shatings, but
that's it.
I don't know lots of cities in
Ooh,
Russia.
That's a really, it's like a string of consonants. That sounds right though.
Okay.
Teaching wasn't exactly his forte though. He knew his stuff, but the kids, they bullied him because he was so meek and mild and just honest. He wasn't overpowering for them. But one of Chikatilo's duties at school was ensuring students who boarded at the school were present in their dorms at night. And on several occasions, he is known to have entered the girls' dormitory in the hope of seeing them undressed. On other occasions, he discovered adolescent pupils who boarded at the school engaged in sex. And he said later that the sight of the adolescents engaged in intercourse, quote, disturbed him as he was confronted with the sight of, quote, children doing what I hadn't done even when I was 30 years old. Wow. Awkward. So, in May of 1973, Chikatilo committed his first known sexual assault upon one of his pupils. It was in this incident, he swam towards a 15-year-old girl and groped her breasts and genitals, ejaculating as the girl struggled against him. Months later, Chikatilo sexually assaulted and beat another teenage girl whom he locked in his classroom. He was not disciplined for either of these incidents, nor for the occasions in which fellow teachers observed him fondling himself in the presence of his students.
Nice.
So that's great. We could have stopped him. Could have stopped him early, y'all. Could have stopped him. In response to the increasing number of complaints lodged against him, the director of the school summoned Chikatilo to a formal meeting and informed him he should either resign voluntarily, blink, blink, or be fired. Not the cops. Not anything like that. No. So he left his employment discreetly and found another job as a teacher at another school in January of 1974. But he lost that job as a result of cutbacks in 1978 before finding another teaching position in Technical School number 33 in Shakhty. Yep, don't know if that's right. A coal mining town 47 miles north of Rostov. By Chikatilo's own admission, by the mid-1970s, his desire to view naked children drove him to loiter around public toilets, which he frequently spied on young girls. He also purchased chewing gum, which he gave to female children he encountered in efforts to initiate contact and gain their trust. Chikatilo is known to have sexually assaulted at least 3 girls who he encountered via this method.
Not that it matters, but it does matter. But when you say children, what age are you talking about? Like children, or like teenagers?
Children.
I'm just asking. Yeah.
Children. He does attack some teens, but these are children. Yeah.
This reminds me of the doctor that you did that could just move around because he was just allowed to retire.
Christopher Dunch.
Where they didn't report him and didn't fire him or make any reports.
Yep.
It's fucked up.
And that nurse who could just go from nursing home to nursing home. And
that's what I'm saying.
We talked about that the other day too. So in September of 1978, Chikatilo moved to Shakhty, where he committed his first documented murder. On the evening of December 22nd, he lured a 9-year-old girl named Yelena Zakatanova to an old, dilapidated hut, a secret shack, if you will, which he had secretly purchased that year. He attempted to rape her, but he failed to achieve an erection. When the girl struggled, he choked and then stabbed her 3 times in the abdomen, ejaculating while stabbing her. In an interview after his 1990 arrest, he later recalled that immediately after he stabbed Zakatanova, the girl had, quote, said something very hoarsely, whereupon he strangled her into unconsciousness before throwing her body into the nearby Grushevka River. Grushevka, sure. Her body was found beneath a nearby bridge 2 days later. I am terribly sorry that I'm saying all of these words wrong.
Yeah, good.
Because I feel like I'm not honoring the dead here. So numerous pieces of evidence linked him to Zakatanova's murder. Spots of blood had been found in the snow close to a fence facing the house that he had purchased. Neighbors had noted that he was present in the house on that evening. Zakatanova's school backpack had been found on the opposite bank of the river at the end of the street, indicating the girl that had been thrown into the river at this location. And a witness had given police a detailed description of a man closely resembling Chikatilo, whom she had seen talking with Zakatanova at the bus stop where the girl had last been seen alive. But despite all of that, a 25-year-old laborer named Oleksandr Kravchenko. Krav?
Yeah, but
okay,
for
sure.
The first,
Kravchenko.
Yeah.
Who had previously served a prison sentence for the rape and murder of a teenage girl, was arrested for the crime. A search of his home revealed spots of blood on his wife's jumper. A blood type was determined to match both the wife and the child, but they could have had the same blood type. I mean, that's a thing. He was Kravchenko was had a very strong alibi for that day, though. He was at home with his wife and a friend of hers the entire afternoon, and neighbors of the couple were able to verify this. Nonetheless, the police were threatening him and his wife, saying, like, we know you did it, blah, 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 you've got to come. Confronted with all of these altered facts, he confessed to the killing and was tried for the murder in 1979. Oh, terrible. At his trial, Kravchenko retracted his confession and maintained his innocence, stating his confession had been obtained under extreme duress. Despite his retraction, he was convicted of the murder and sentenced to death. This sentence,
oh my God.
This sentence was commuted to 15 years imprisonment by the Supreme Court in 1980 under pressure from the victim's relatives. Kravchenko was retried, erroneously convicted, and eventually executed by firing squad for Zakatanova's murder in July of 1983.
Oh my God, he didn't even do it.
He didn't do it.
At least it's not just the American police.
Innocence Project, what's up? Go to...
I realize that's horrible.
Oh, it's awful.
I can't believe that.
So following
I can, but I can't.
Zakatanova's murder, Chikatilo was able to achieve sexual arousal and orgasm only through stabbing and slashing women and children to death. And he later claimed that the urge to relive the experience had overwhelmed him. Nonetheless, Chikatilo did stress that initially he had struggled to resist these urges, often cutting short business trips to return home rather than face the temptation to search for a victim. So between death number one, killing number one, and killing number two was probably like a pretty big break, self-imposed break. After that, no, not so much. So after being cleared of the murder of Zakatanova, Andrei Chikatilo continued teaching. Chikatilo's career as a teacher ended in March of 1981 following several complaints of child molestation against pupils of both sexes. The same month, he began a job as a supply clerk for a factory based in Rostov, which produced construction materials. And this required him to travel extensively across much of the Soviet Union, which is that's a very opportune thing for a serial killer. So you can just keep going and leave town, right? So he had to physically purchase raw materials required to fulfill production quotas or negotiate supply contracts. So he was kind of on the road a lot. September 3rd, 1981, he kills his second known victim. So there's quite a bit of a break between those two. This victim is a 17-year-old Larissa Tkachenko?
Yeah, Tkachenko.
Okay, sure. Her body was found the next day. He was elated. While his first victim had left him frustrated and confused, the second had given him an appetite that he found hard to satisfy. June 12th, 1982, while on another business trip to the town of Zaplavskaya, he killed, not even going to try, he killed 13-year-old Lyuba Biryuk.
Yeah, Luba.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
But I feel so bad for these children. After following her from a bus stop, after a failed attempt at rape, he produced a knife and stabbed her repeatedly, including several wounds to her eyes. And this begins his thing where he was told, I guess, as a child, like killing, like the eyes tell the story. So he would like gouge their eyes out and stab them.
Oh my God.
So that they wouldn't see him in their afterlife.
Yeah. In the childhood, we were threatened by Chikatilo. So if I was doing something wrong, I may be told that Chikatilo is somewhere around your corner.
Stop it.
Yes.
That was like your boogeyman?
Yes.
Y'all are stressing me out.
Yeah.
I feel like I need 5 more beers.
Well, he thought like this was like an old wives' tale, right? But then he was like, and then I realized it was a bunch of bullshit, and he stopped doing it. Like he did that for a while, then he was like, I don't think they're gonna see me. But he still did it. He still did it for a long time. Yeah.
Oh, and then the fact that he was like a boogeyman, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But his mom threatened him with a boogeyman. Yeah. Is everything that happened to him, he became.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every horror he experienced, he reenacted. He did it. So he was threatened with people are going to come out and eat you, and he was that person.
Was he raped? I'm just asking. You didn't mention it, but I didn't know if
there's no,
because like in some of the other stories we've done, they experienced.
Dude, I don't know. He shared a bed with his mom, who hit him in the penis with a wooden spoon every time he wet the bed.
I think it's enough.
I think that's enough.
Yeah.
And
I was just curious.
And being an older child wetting the bed is usually a sign of trauma. So there's so much going on. Plus he had the water on the bed. Okay. Okay, but because of the warm summer conditions, her body was almost a skeleton when it was found just 2 weeks later, and that was Lyuba.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he goes on to kill so many more people in 1982. So like he started off slow and then he was like, this is great. This is all, I am all about this. And I'm not going to go through all of his victim stories, not to disrespect any of them. There's just a lot. We'll be here for a long time. So I'll just say their names and ages. So in 1982, he kills a 14-year-old girl named Lyuba Volobohiva. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to butcher them. I should just say their ages. A 9-year-old girl, a 16-year-old girl, a 9-year-old boy, a 15-year-old boy, a 10-year-old, and a 10-year-old girl. That was in 1982. Chikatilo, he was shy. He was impotent, quickly learned how to choose his victims very carefully. His travels taught him a lot. He was taking all the railway and bus stations, and he was able to coerce young vagrants of both sexes to go with him. One of the things that he would do would be like, you want to go into the woods? That was like code for like, you want to have sex. So if you're homeless, vagrant, sex worker, young person, you know, if someone's like you, older person who looks clean and tidy is like, hey, you want to go into the woods? You're like, I'm going to get money from this. So sure.
But even the 9-year-olds, that's sad. I mean, that's
how many people were orphaned. And, you know,
I
how many
know, but
people
just
were...
it's sad to think that a 9-year-old would have to resort to that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep. So they were
assuming that they're going to get money for doing
these were
this.
like younger teenagers at this point. Mostly it was the promise of food or treats. On some occasions, the victims were offered on some occasions, the victims offered sexual favors in advance. Either way, once they went with him, they were doomed. An added advantage of preying on vagrants in Russia was that nobody reported them missing because officially they didn't exist. They only became known when their bodies were found. So now it's 1983. Chikatilo kills a 15-year-old girl, a 13-year-old girl, a 24-year-old woman, a 7-year-old boy, a 22-year-old woman, an 18-year-old girl, a 19-year-old girl, and a 14-year-old boy. Due to the sheer savagery of the murders and the precision of the eviscerations upon the victims, on the victims' bodies, police theorized that the killings had been conducted by either a group harvesting organs to sell for transplant, or it was the work of a satanic cult, or a mentally ill individual. Got that one right. Much of the police effort concentrated upon the theory that the killer must be mentally ill, homosexual, or a pedophile, and the alibis of all individuals who had either spent time in psychiatric wards or who had been convicted of homosexuality or pedophilia were checked and logged in a card filing system. Registered sex offenders were also investigated, and if their alibi was corroborated, eliminated from the inquiry. They looked into thousands of people. Like, that's a very big swath of the population. Beginning in September of 1983, several young men confessed to the murders, although these individuals, and that happens, right?
Yeah.
These individuals were often intellectually disabled youths who admitted to the crimes only under prolonged and often brutal interrogation. 3 known homosexuals and a convicted sex offender committed suicide as a result of the investigators. Assholes.
Yeah, they're brutal.
As a result of the investigation, however, this is the one silver lining, 1,062 unrelated crimes, to include 95 murders, 140 aggravated assaults, and 245 rapes were solved.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I heard someone say, so is Chikatilo like the best detective that Russia had? It's like they solved all these murders. So it's like, it's the best cop they had. At the end of 1983, the total number of victims had risen to 17, of which 6 had been found. The central Moscow militia, concerned by the number of dead children that were being reported by the local police, sent Major Mikhail Fedosov and his team to Rostov to take over the investigation. And as soon as he got there, Fedosov reviewed the situation and tore the superiors in Moscow a new one, criticizing what was happening, because he was just like, this is terrible police work that's happening down here. It's not a cult. It's not harvesters. This is the work of one person. We should be looking for one person. So Moscow headquarters reluctantly accepted his findings, but fell short of calling the perpetrator a serial killer because that was a Western thing, not an Eastern thing. Surprise. Surprise. You have one. Okay, so in 1984, the murders were accelerating at an alarming rate. I know this is hard to believe. It already sounds like it's elevated and accelerated. But from January to September of 1984, 15 new murders had been committed.
Oh my God. How do you even have time to do that?
11 of them during the summertime alone.
Yeah.
I know. On September 13th, 1984, Chikatilo was observed by two undercover detectives attempting to talk to young women at a Rostov bus station. The detectives followed him as he wandered through the city, trying to approach women and committing acts of frotteurism in public places. Frotteurism? Voyeurism? Frotteurism?
Yeah.
Which is an interest in rubbing one's genitals, usually the pelvic area, right, or erect penis, against a non-consenting person for sexual pleasure. So just,
Because I'm not laughing at the situation for those that are listening. I'm laughing to the motions that are happening in this room.
That's true. So it's like this. No. Just someone going up and dry
I'm
humping
just still
you.
stuck on 15 in the 1 year.
11 in the summer. 11 in the summer. So upon Chikatilo's arrival at the city's central market, he was arrested and held. A search of his belongings revealed a knife that was 7.9 inches long, the blade. Damn. Several lengths of rope and a jar of Vaseline. Wow. That just sounds suspicious. As fuck. Just
your everyday items, cat.
What's the Vaseline for if you can't get it up? Is it just for the masturbating?
This is not that kind of show.
I know. I'm just
Yes, not the thieves.
He's looking at me like, don't keep asking that line of questioning.
Nice try and trapping us, cat. This is your episode, not ours.
Okay.
He's here to help you with the words. I'm just here because I have to be.
I love you too, Ashley. Oh, God. Shit. All right. So he was also discovered to be under investigation for a minor theft at one of his former employers, which gave the investigators the legal right to hold him for a prolonged period of time. So Chikatilo's dubious background was uncovered, and his physical description matched the description of the man seen walking alongside one of the previous murders of the boys, one of the boys that was previously murdered. So a sample of Chikatilo's blood was taken. They were looking for somebody with AB type blood. Chikatilo's blood was type A.
Why were they looking for AB? I'm sorry.
Because that was when they found sperm everywhere because the man just ejaculated on all things. And so they were able to find that due to the sperm that it was an AB.
I did not know you could tell blood type that way. Sorry.
So they took his blood, but it was type A.
Gotcha. Okay.
So his name was discounted as the killer because of that. But guess what? There's more. So Chikatilo is now under arrest, And as his story is unfolding, police learned of his penchant for children, particularly girls. They uncovered the classroom incidents that had previously gone unreported and all of that. His acts of voyeurism, his Freuderism, his sexual assault of the boy in the dorm, several people who lived in the vicinity of his secret shack. We talked about that. It's reported that he used it to entertain prostitutes and spoke of his habit of stalking the corridors of trains. He was around the trains a lot. So he was just there a lot. The evidence seemed to indicate that he could be the killer they sought until the blood sample taken from him was analyzed. And since he had this crazy 1 in a million thing where his semen and his blood were 2 different blood types. Which is
they didn't take another blood sample. They didn't
take a sperm sample because that would have taken a long time, I'm sure.
I just feel like if the victims
impotent, how are they going to?
I know, but I just feel like if the victims were raped with sperm samples, you would also figure out a way to take a sperm sample.
I don't know.
I'm not a detective.
It's literally a 1 in a million chance that he would be that guy whose sperm and whose blood did not match. It's a thing, but it is so rare. It is so rare. And for him to have been a serial rapist and killer, he couldn't have gotten luckier because that just let him off. And they were like, well, it doesn't match. And they didn't know. They should have known. The only real evidence that they had left were the contents of his briefcase, which were just suspicious, and the police report of his activities at the train stations. But the local police lieutenant lost the briefcase evidence.
Nice.
So
great job.
Womp, womp, womp here. Oh, I can do it right. Oh. On October 8th, 1984, the head of the Russian Public Prosecutor's Office formally linked 23 of Chikatilo's murders into one case and dropped all charges against the mentally disabled youths who had previously confessed to the murders. So they're like, there's no way you guys could have done it. He was doing something. Okay. So Chikatilo was found guilty of theft of property from his previous employer. And that's how the man goes to jail the first time. His membership in the Communist Party was revoked and he was sentenced to 1 year in prison, but he was released after serving just 3 months. Yay. Gone again, slipped through the fingers. So after getting out of jail in December of 1984, Chikatilo scored a job at a train factory in someplace I'm not going to try and pronounce, and tried to keep a low profile. But then on August 1st, 1985, while he was on a work trip to Moscow, he ran into Natalia Poklistova, an 18-year-old woman at a train station near an airport. I'm just not even going to say the name of the airport.
These names are beautiful.
Domodedovo?
Yeah, in Russia, they say Domodedovo.
Why would I know that?
That's so fancy. That's not even sarcastic. I love these names.
Domodedovo Airport.
Yeah, this is a huge airport in Moscow.
Oh, He lured her off the train, took her to some woods near Vostryakovo, and brutally killed her. Did I butcher that?
I don't know.
Vostryakovo.
It sounds right.
Sure, it sounds. It's alliteration, or not alliteration. It's just like
I'm
phonics.
German, not Russian, so I can't.
I'm hooked on phonics. I'm just trying to read each letter. All right, so cops figured out that the killer might have flown from Rostov to Moscow, and they checked flight records, but Chikatilo had taken the train, so there were no flight records to track him down. So, no, smart. A month later, on August 27th, he struck again, this time in Shakhty, killing Irina Gulieva. The way he murdered her matched the previous victims, adding to the hunt for the serial killer. They're finally admitting it. By November of 85, the investigation had grown big, with special prosecutor Isa Gostoyev leading 15 prosecutors and 29 detectives on the case. They dug back into the old murders and started questioning sex offenders and just plain old gay folks again. Because being gay was a crime, or is a crime still, right? Cops also stepped up patrols at train stations around Rostov, and they had even had undercover female officers hanging around bus and train stops. But he's seeing it all, right? He's like, I see what you guys are doing. I'm not going to go to this train station. I'm going to hit up these other places. I'm no dummy, because he's like watching, like, you guys are obviously cops. Like,
I mean, he works for the railroad system.
No, he's traveling all over.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're just not.
Yeah,
like they're not
very.
I mean,
oblivious. I mean, he's not oblivious, right?
Yeah,
like they're very obvious about what they're doing.
Yes, it looks like cops trying to frame him, and some of them are in plain clothes, but he can see them. At the urging of Burakov, the lead investigator, they brought in Dr. Oleksandr Bukanovsky, a psychiatrist, to help out. It was the first time they'd done that for a serial killer case in the Soviet Union. So he got all the reports on the evidence, and in return, he gave them a psychological profile of the killer.
Interesting.
So Bukanovsky's profile of the killer was like a deep dive into the mind of a disturbed person. A guy, probably in his 40s or early 50s, who had a messed up childhood, couldn't flirt to save his life, and had some serious sexual issues. He was educated, likely married with kids, but also a sadist who got off on seeing his victims suffer. His impotence made him use murder as a twisted substitute for sex, and with his knife playing the role of his malfunctioning penis.
Oh.
Boom. I mean,
this guy is great.
Without even knowing him, that just described Chikatilo. Like, I mean,
yeah.
Whoa. Yay. So he also, Bukanovsky also pointed out that the killer probably had a job that involved regular travel, given when and where the murders had happened. Chikatilo, meanwhile, kept a close eye on the investigation following the newspaper reports about the manhunt. He managed to hold back his murderous urges for almost a year after that last killing in August of 85. But then in July of 86, there was a possible new victim found dead in Rostov. The evidence seemed to link her murder to the serial killer hunt, with matching semen and some similarities in how she was killed. But there were also differences. She wasn't dismembered. There wasn't any public transportation involved, so they weren't convinced it was the same guy. But so in 1985, Gostoyev, the director of Moscow's Department for Violent Crime, officially called the Killer Department, reorganizes his investigators into 3 teams. So first they were just at Rostov, but as Chikatilo started moving, they were like, okay, we're going to set up over here in Shakhty, and then another one in Novoshakhtinsk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Gosh,
City.
Yeah, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to...
Louie is staring
Louie
at me from the kitchen. Sorry.
So what they started to do... So in the last podcast, guys, were like... It's like, if you can picture like the Benny Hill music to this, like here... Because it was... They weren't going to focus on Rostov, and so they went to Shakhty, but then Chikatilo would go back to Rostov, and then like you just hear the music like
yeah.
So they started to be a little bit more strategic about their placement. So maybe not so many, put more plain clothes, maybe some more undercover, maybe, and so like they started to be a little bit smarter about their placement. But this went on for years. Gosh,
I still wasn't born at this point. I just like to throw that in.
Okay. You're an asshole. All right.
I only bring it up because you tell everybody.
I know.
I like to
I know. All right. So In August of 1985, Chikatilo kills two 18-year-old girls. December of 1985, Burakov and Kostoyev had organized for all the trains in the 3 districts to be patrolled by plainclothes militia, as the volunteer militia were called the Drusiniki. Oh, nope. Ignore that sentence. Their instructions were to stop and check the documents of anyone who looked suspicious. He looked suspicious. So, in addition, Army helicopters were used to patrol the railway lines and the adjoining forests from the air. This increased scrutiny may have been the reason why Chikatilo ceased his activities for nearly 2 years. Wow. Because he was like, let me just step back for a little bit. Okay.
Wonder what he did during that time to like tie him over. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you have those urges and you're killing like 15 people a year at minimum, like what are you doing in those 2 years where you're not like, how are you, you know what I mean? Like, what were you doing?
To he's crazy, not insane, because he had control of his faculties. He could stop.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So he was crazy, but he wasn't insane.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
However, early in 1987, he couldn't hold himself back anymore. He resumed his killing, the majority occurring away from the Rostov area, and victims were no longer taken from local public transport outlets as police surveillance of these continued. Over the next few years, the body count increased by a further 20 victims, and it appeared that the killer was taking increasing risks, focusing primarily on young boys, and often killing in public places where the risk of detection was far higher. In 1987, Chikatilo killed 3 young boys, ages 13, 12, and 16. In 88, he killed a 12-year-old girl, a 9-year-old boy, and a 15-year-old boy. In March of 1989, he killed a 16-year-old girl named Tatiana Rizova. After he lured the 16-year-old girl inside, he gave her vodka and seduced her. This is the only time that he actually killed her, like in a house, in an apartment. It was actually an apartment. And so the problem that happened was he had to get rid of the body. He had to dispose of the body. And so he was like, oh, it's not like the woods where you can just leave it and cover it up with some leaves for someone to find later. It's like he had to actually dispose of it. So he had to take a kitchen knife and he decapitated her, sawed off her legs, and then tied the bundles of her body to a sled belonging to a neighbor and dragged it through the street to the area where he dumped his remains. Someone actually saw him struggling with the sled and helped him.
They didn't see the fucking body?
Wow, this is really heavy. Like, could you imagine? Like, hey, you need some help with that?
Jesus.
So nice.
Was it like in a bag? Like,
well, they were like, it was like bundles of rags and clothes and, just looked like rubbish.
I guess.
It just looked,
sure.
There's no blood. Like, is it not covered in blood?
Your story's stressing me out. I'm ready to leave.
Kitchen bags, For the remainder of 1989, he goes on to kill an 8-year-old boy, a 10-year-old boy, a 19-year-old girl. And he killed her while on his way to his father's birthday party. Happy birthday, Dad. But
so you're telling me he killed someone and then just went on to a fucking birthday party?
Not just that. He cut out her uterus. He sliced off part of her face. He wrapped the remains in her clothing and left for the party. He said, I never ate them, but I chewed them. So I'm not technically a cannibal. I'm not a cannibal.
I didn't eat them. I just chewed on them.
Mm-hmm. He would like bite their tongues or nipples off or just like lips. So he was very brutal. So he was warned he'd be eaten and he ended up eating. Awful.
I could have done without that. I could have done without the effects you just did.
Oh, sorry. I was like, So, then Chikatilo kills a 10-year-old boy. And And when police are recovering the bodies, many of them were missing body parts. Many females were missing their uterus and their nipples. And the males had genitals and occasionally their tongues sliced or bitten off. So now we're in 1990. Holy shit.
I was born at that point. Just
God.
I'm just kidding.
You know,
What do you do with a cutout uterus? Like, was he keeping these as trophies?
Was chewing them.
Yeah, but was he eating them? Like, was he just chewing them?
He just chewed them. He didn't swallow.
And then did what?
And then they would...
Like, he just chewed on them and then what? I'm just... Like, what do you
Threw them
do?
away? I don't know. They're full of protein. I don't know. I don't know. He said...
I didn't know if he, like, kept them as trophies. God, I just didn't know if he kept them as, like, some killers keep, like... trophies, and I just didn't know if that's what he was doing. Like, it's such a weird thing to cut out a uterus. So I was just curious as to what he was doing with them besides just chewing on them.
He liked the texture of them. He liked the springiness of them, and so he would just like olives and mushrooms. He loved that. My nightmare was his delicacy. Okay, 1990. This is his last year of freedom. We're almost at the end here. Aren't you so glad? God. Why did you make me do this story? She's looking at you like
I'm not looking at him. You're the one that decided to do it.
Well, he's
just a guest. Don't blame the guest.
Listener request.
Socks, come here. You're my support kitty. Yeah. All
right, 1990. An 11-year-old boy named Andrei Kravchenko. Oh, God. A 10-year-old boy. So this is who he's killed. A 10-year-old boy, a 31-year-old woman, a 13-year-old boy, an 11-year-old boy, 16-year-old boy.
So he really doesn't discriminate on age then? No. Because you mentioned people in their 20s, too.
Yes. Well, some of them were prostitutes, vagrants. Some of them were just children who believed whatever he said,
This is Socks. If you haven't met him.
So the last boy that was killed, his body was found on November 3rd near Rostov's railway station, a location that had been under heavy scrutiny for months. And ironically, that day, it wasn't patrolled because of a manpower shortage. So that was the day Chikatilo was like, what? This is great. So he struck that day. October 30th, he kills a 16-year-old boy. And then on November 6th, 1990, Chikatilo kills a 22-year-old woman named Svetlana Korostik. She went with him to the woods near the railway station in Rostov, and she was beaten, stabbed, and mutilated. He removed the tip of her tongue and both nipples and ate them at the scene before he covered her naked body with leaves and branches. He would say he spit them out, but he didn't swallow.
I am not victim blaming. Okay, this is a legitimate question. Is it really that common to go into the woods with people in this area?
It was a thing.
Well, I'm just asking. Like,
I don't know. Maybe people used to go at that time. Maybe in 80s.
Because I just feel like if here, right, a stranger asked you to go into the woods, you'd be like, what?
What? No, dude. Yeah.
Fuck no. Like, I've watched true crime. So I was just curious.
Yeah. As he returned to the station, he saw 4 women and a man standing on the platform. The man was Sergeant Igor Rybakov. Sure. A policeman attached to the Forest Belt Task Force. He noticed Chikatilo walking beside the platform, wiping sweat from his face. That was sus. And he noticed right away then that his clothing was covered in mud and leaves, and he had blood across his earlobe and a little on his cheek. And although the officer couldn't prove Chikatilo had done anything wrong, he took his details and filed a report. When a body was later found in that area, they combed through the records and found Chikatilo's card, placing him under surveillance for the next 6 days. So they were like, oh, we took these notes. Now we're going to place him under surveillance. So then on November 20th, 1990.
That's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Sorry, go on.
Chikatilo was at work. He had a bandaged finger because someone had one of his victims had bitten it and broken it. It was aching really badly, and he left work, went to a clinic for X-rays, saw that it was broken, and he went home. After arriving home, he went out to buy some beer. On the way, he attempted to talk to a young boy, but was scared off when a woman approached. He walked a little bit farther along the road, and he met another little boy, and he engaged in a conversation with him until the boy was called away by his mother. As he continued on, 3 men in leather jackets approached him and identified themselves as police officers. One of the men then handcuffed him and told him that he was under arrest. He was transported to the office of Mikhail Fedosov at the regional headquarters of the Department of Internal Affairs. Chikatilo, who had made no attempt to resist the arrest, did not speak for the entire trip. He had with him a briefcase containing a knife, a length of rope, and a jar of Vaseline.
Can I just ask? So it's not cannibalism if you don't actually swallow. It's
I don't know.
You just chew on stuff, and it's not. It's just whatever. I'm just asking.
It's like chewing
I just
on
need
a
to know the
switch.
rules.
I don't know. Okay, taking notes.
Yeah, just over here on my
Not
phone.
a cannibal. Cannibal.
Check.
All right. So afterwards, they did a search of his apartment. Police found 23 knives. Seems excessive.
Very.
It just seems like
not regular kitchen knives. We're talking about
you don't have like some of them are regular kitchen knives, but that's still too many knives. Like you don't have that many people over that you need like all those steak knives. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not to be a minimalist or anything. I'm just saying like 23 seems like a lot.
Yeah.
You know. A hammer and a pair of shoes that were later found to match the footprint next to one of his victims.
Damn.
Ooh, that was the clincher. The next day, on the 21st of November, formal questioning of Chikatilo began, and the interrogation was performed by Gostoyev. The strategy chosen by the police to elicit a confession was to lead Chikatilo to believe that he was a very sick person who needed to confess so that he could then be able to say that he was insane. That was their like, see, if you tell us, we can help you work that insanity plea.
But his breaks proved that he wasn't, right? Like that he could control it, so he wasn't actually insane.
They were, I don't think they were thinking that far in advance. They were just like, we need a fucking confession.
Gotcha.
So, you just kind of say whatever it is that you need to say to get that confession. So police knew because without that confession, everything was pretty circumstantial.
Right.
They had 10 days that they could legally hold him before they had to release him if they didn't charge him. So they were trying to do all of that. They got him to do it, and that was it. He was arrested. On April 14th, 1992, the first day of Chikatilo's trial, and like I'm skipping because really we don't really care about the trial. We just want to hear about the end. You can see photos and video of that courtroom and the craziness. He was put in this cage, and many people have said it was to protect the people from him, but it was like grandmother's like, I'm gonna kill you, let me at him, like, and he just was like getting a kick out of it. He's like, oh, okay. It was crazy. You should go look at those pictures. He was described by coworkers as not somebody who laughed a lot, but when he smiled, he looked like a crocodile.
I'm sorry.
It's the pictures of him smiling in that cage that you're like, yep.
I watched this video.
He looked crazy. His eyes get all big and his smile, and he just looks manic. And then he even like undressed in court and was like hitting his penis at the judge. What am I supposed to do with this useless thing? And so he's like naked in front of all of these people, grandmothers and everybody, just hitting his penis. Like, what am I supposed to do?
I like how I just
this?
type in Russian serial killer and he's like the first.
He's it, right? He's the one.
It.
Yeah, he's super creepy. Those eyes and ugh. Cold dead eyes. So on October 15th, 1992, he was found guilty of 52 counts of murder. He did confess to 53. They found him on 52 counts. One charge having been dropped owing to insufficient evidence. And then on February 14th, 1994, happy Valentine's Day, Chikatilo was told that he would be going to the doctor, making him think that he was going to get some help, medical help. I think it was psychiatric help, but instead he was sent into a room. And once he entered, he was executed by a single shot to the back of the neck. Done and done. So there was no like execution day where the public came to cheer it on or whatever. Like it was just like, yeah, why don't you come into this room? Boom. Like that was it. There was like no ceremony to it at all. I'm not even sure how they chose that day, but that's it. I'm sorry for butchering all of those names. I shouldn't say butcher during this particular episode, but I really ruined a lot of those names. And I wish I could have said all of the victims' names, but names are hard.
They're beautiful names, though.
They are. And I just was like, I'm just going to not do well. Some of those, so it would have been too funny. And it's not meant to be funny to say their names and to say them wrong. It's all consonants with like an I thrown in there, ending in a no. You know, it's like I can't do it. But anyway, that is my story. Yeah. Ashley hates me right now. Hates you a little bit.
I don't. No. This is not his fault. This is all on you. You chose to do it.
Me.
You chose to go through with it. You chose to tell it. He just suggested it.
I was like, hey, what Ukrainian true crime story should I do? And he's like, huh. And he wrote it down. I'm like, I don't even know what that says. So I had to like look it up.
Yeah, because we have another one, serial killer, is named Anatoly Onaprienko, this his surname. So he has at least 52 victims. And he was operating in Ukraine, precisely in Ukraine. So his story is crazy shit. But this one is beyond.
You can come on and tell that story because I can't. You can pronounce the words. I'm not going to do it.
I don't want to hear shit about any more of my stories. Where you're like, this makes me feel so terrible, so horrible. How could you tell that story? You just wait till next week.
Oh God.
I'm going to find the most fucked up story I can find. I'm just kidding.
You've already told some of those.
Oh, I'm not done. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not.
Man.
My search history is already probably flagged somewhere.
Well, I was going to do a disappearance and then that turned into a serial killer. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to do a serial killer, I might as well do the one that...
That was an interesting story, though. I mean, I think it's interesting to learn about the serial killers in other countries and just the process of like how they find, you know what I mean? Because like it's so different. Like the investigations are different, and
it was 80s, it was 70s, so it was different system of prosecution of everything, legal.
Keep the mic.
It plays into the new nurture versus nature a lot. I feel like that was a really good story.
And I like I said, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Like everything that ever happened to him, he turned around and became that horror. And that is just unfortunately that's sad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a cycle that we see all the time.
Yeah.
In these stories that we tell.
Be kind to one another. Damn.
Teach your children to be kind.
Please.
Because so many of these stories, the kids are being bullied at home. They're being bullied by other students. It's just awful. I mean,
it's really
mental health is a real issue, and it's sad.
And it doesn't make people weak. I hate that.
Yeah.
That's why First Lie Wins is the book. Can't forget that.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're supposed to read First Lie Wins.
So because she brought it up, it's it's an audiobook on Spotify. It's like a psychological thriller type thing. It's really good. I played in the background. I loved it. I didn't see any of the stuff that was. I thought I knew. I didn't know. It's good. Totally unrelated to your story.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Sort of related to my story. I'm reading Guilty by Reason of Insanity. And it's by that psychologist, Dorothy Lewis, that Crazy Not Insane documentary is based on her. So I'm really interested, like that interests me. So her big question, the reason she does her work is, why do some people kill and others don't? Like some people have the exact same living experience in the same household and one becomes a serial killer and the other one doesn't. Like, what happens? Like, and so she is actually arguing that there is actual brain damage, that there's an actual, like, something is happening.
Isn't there like an actual serial killer gene? We've talked about that before too, haven't we? Like there's some people that are actually born with a gene that makes them more susceptible.
I don't know.
Sorry. Well, there is.
Maybe we should do that story on that. Anyway, so I'm reading that very fast. It's fascinating because I mean, she's the one that was asked by Ted Bundy to say that he was by reason of insanity not fit to be executed, and she feels that she made the wrong decision because she said that she wouldn't do that. And now later in life, she says she made the wrong decision because she really believes that he had multiple personalities. Because in that room with him, he says, this person is not the one that killed people. Like the man before you is not the one that killed people. But at a previous time had said that he was a killer. So she was like, and then she started seeing letters by him signed as his grandfather. Signed like he was using a different name. And so like there was like a different, and he was very, very mean. He was very, very abusive. So like it's just this sort of idea that there's obviously something's happening. Something's happening.
Maybe I'll do my story on that because there is a gene that's been linked to like sociopaths and serial killers. Like they're born with this gene and it leads them to be naturally more aggressive, which eventually leads to them, if they don't get treatment, being a serial killer, a sociopath, whatever. But it was a Dutch scientist that discovered this gene. They did a bunch of studies on serial killers and other stuff, and they all had this particular, or I shouldn't say all, majority of them were born with this particular gene that led them to be more susceptible. So anyways. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it in a future episode.
If you see something, say something.
Yes. If you need help, reach out.
Don't follow anyone into the woods or accept candy from strangers.
Unless it's good candy.
Nope. Not even then. Nope. No. I agree. Unless it's Halloween, but even then, I don't know. Agree to disagree.
Margaritas, maybe.
Margarita.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just joshing.
Anyway, how do we do?
Perfect.
I didn't do shit.
It's like Toastmasters. So guest, tell us what you thought of the meeting.
Yeah, you did great. The story is horrible, really. All these people, they went through a terrible time. But despite all of that, he killed so many people. Mm-hmm. He destroyed so many families. And till now, like, I feel in my childhood, I was threatened by Chikatilo. So I was born in 1991, but nevertheless, I was frightened. Because I know, like, he wasn't he wasn't at, like, behind the corner. But this appearance of, like, the soul or maybe of something, like, if this fright was
spirit.
So it was so strong. So we realized, okay, so it was like projection. So somebody like Chikatilo, he could have happened behind the corner waiting for you. And if you are not at the home, like at 7 p.m., you might have been like kidnapped by Chikatilo and killed. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was true because so many dangerous people were around somewhere.
So, like the history of the cannibalism, it just kind of all got like he killed people, but there was also like neighbors eating neighbors. You know, like I don't know. That just I know it was out of survival. Like I think like I would imagine both things being used to scare children. They're going to come get you.
Maybe I just send you over some information about that because in Ukraine there were 2 Holodomors, and all of them it's not natural. So.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So this communism, they decided to kill all Ukrainians, and it was one attempt, then another one attempt, and it was severe. And they really killed people. So they came to your house. They opened up everything, and they took everything as well. So you were left with nothing.
When was the second one?
Just several years later.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah. So it is our story.
Yeah.
So it's history.
Yeah.
And it's not just one village or one city. It's a huge country.
It's a huge country.
Like imagine the size of Texas.
Yeah.
Like they almost equal.
Yeah,
And the biggest country in Europe.
Yeah.
Wow.
So back into Chikatilo, it was a great story. It was frightening, but I'm sorry for these people. And
100%.
Yeah.
So sad. So sad. What were you going to say?
Nothing.
Okay. So
I have nothing to say.
you're like, this sucked. So
I have to go grocery shopping now.
all right,
I'm just gonna
everybody.
be looking at everyone at the grocery store, be like, I don't trust you. I don't trust you.
Don't you do that anyway?
I don't like people, so
All right, everybody. For real.
see something, say something. If you need help, please reach out to us.
Just be kind,
Yes.
please. You don't know what other people are going through. Just be kind to one another. It means a lot. And we will see you next week. Say bye.
Bye.